The first time I saw her, she laughed at me. It wasn't the kind of laugh you hear in polite conversation. It was sharp, unrestrained, and unapologetic. I had just boarded the Aurora's Edge, a luxury starliner bound for the fringes of the Cygnus Rift, and I had dared to ask her a question that, in retrospect, was embarrassingly naive. Do you really think a single human can navigate a wormhole? I had asked, hoping to sound curious, but not foolish. She tilted her head, her iridescent eyes glinting under the ship's neon lighting. Do you really think a human is worth navigating one? Her laugh echoed down the corridor, bouncing off the titanium walls and leaving me standing there with a blush creeping across my cheeks. I swallowed hard and mumbled. I meant hypothetically. Hypothetically, she said, rolling the word like a blade over my nervousness. Humans don't get hypotheticals. Humans get consequences. Her name, I would soon learn, was Elara Voss. She was a pilot, or more accurately, a legend, whose skill in navigating uncharted wormholes was whispered about in interstellar ports from Epsilon Eridani to the edges of the Milky Way. Yet she was younger than I expected, maybe mid-20s, with an almost alien poise that made everyone else on the ship seem clumsy and ordinary. And she had just humiliated me. Boarding the Edge. The Aurora's Edge was nothing like a commercial liner. Its corridors hummed with energy conduits and neural interfaces. Windows weren't just for looking out. They doubled as interactive star maps. I had been hired as a communications specialist for the trip, a role that required little physical prowess, but demanded a mind sharp enough to decode alien signal patterns. I was good at it, but I knew my specialty wasn't the kind of skill that earned respect from someone like Elara. I spent the first few hours avoiding her, slipping into the observation deck to watch stars bleed into wormholes on the outer edge of the rift. The ship vibrated subtly as it approached the anomaly, a swirling tear in space-time rumored to hold undiscovered civilizations, rare minerals, and untold dangers. The crew was tense. Even seasoned navigators whispered under their breath about what had happened to previous explorers who had attempted a similar route. Then, without warning, the ship's AI, an organic intelligence named Lattice, issued a warning. Unstable gravitic fluctuations detected within the wormhole cluster Theta 9. Recommendation: delay jump by 67 minutes. Elara didn't wait. She strode into the observation deck, her boots clicking like a metronome. Lattice is cautious. Lattice is correct half the time. Humans are better at risk. I watched her, and despite myself, I was intrigued. There was something magnetic about her fearlessness. But I also noticed something else. She wasn't just brave. She was reckless. The first jump. When the time came to make the jump, Elara took the helm. She didn't wear the bulky pilot suit most of the crew donned. Instead, she preferred light exosuits that enhanced reflexes but offered minimal protection. Comfort is speed, she told me, as if speaking directly to my hesitation. The ship shuddered as we approached the wormhole's event horizon. Light streaked, gravity twisted, and reality itself seemed to fold. I felt nausea crawl up my spine, but Elara's eyes were fixed on the controls, unwavering. And then snap. We were through. The stars weren't stars anymore. Space was a kaleidoscope of shifting geometries, wormhole currents twisting like liquid prisms. Elara's laugh, her signature, almost cruel laugh, echoed through the cabin as she steered through the impossible maze. You see, she said, voice trembling with exhilaration, humans can navigate this. I wanted to argue, to remind her that our human fragility could be our downfall. But the words caught in my throat. The ship was alive in ways I had never imagined, responding to her touch as if it were an extension of her body. Hours passed, or was it minutes? Time warped inside the rift. That was when the first anomaly struck. The rift's secret. A colossal structure emerged from the warped space, floating silently. It was a space station, unlike anything in human records. Its surface shimmered with crystalline panels that refracted light in impossible angles. Lattice buzzed with excitement. Unknown civilization detected. Preliminary scans suggest sentient occupancy. Alara didn't hesitate. She aimed the ship for the docking bay without even consulting the captain. "We'll learn nothing if we hover," she said, a hint of a grin breaking her stern demeanor. As we docked, the station's atmosphere seemed almost sentient. Doors opened before we reached them. Corridors stretched endlessly, and holographic symbols pulsed in sync with the rhythm of our hearts. Then, we were greeted by figures that defied description. Tall, translucent beings whose form shifted between solid and liquid states, speaking in harmonics rather than words. They didn't look at Alara first. They looked at me. "You are unusual," the harmonic voice resonated, filling the chamber. "You carry the Echo Stone." I froze. The Echo Stone was a relic I had been studying for years, believed to be lost in the Cygnus Rift centuries ago. Somehow, I had unknowingly carried it in my satchel, its activation unknown until this very moment. Alara, meanwhile, laughed. "See? Even humans stumble into greatness. You're lucky to be here, not me." The unraveling. But my luck didn't last. As we explored the station, systems that had seemed dormant activated, reacting to the Echo Stone. Doors slammed shut, corridors reconfigured, and a low-frequency vibration shook the station's crystalline floor. The harmonics of the being shifted, no longer welcoming but anxious. Alara's laughter faded. She tapped at the control console, trying to override the station systems, but nothing responded. Panic flashed across her face, brief but sharp. For the first time, I saw vulnerability in her. "Don't just stand there," she barked at me. "Help me." I realized something then. The Echo Stone didn't just unlock the station, it bound us to it. The station's consciousness had awoken, and it wanted something we had yet to understand. Hours passed, and tension mounted. Alara, once untouchable, grew desperate. She barked orders, tried to brute force systems, even argued with Lattice, but the AI's calm logic couldn't counter the station's alien architecture. I, on the other hand, started to notice patterns in the harmonic frequencies. My years of decoding alien signals had prepared me for this moment. Slowly, carefully, I mimicked the harmonics of the station through the ship's interface, resonating with the Echo Stone's energy. Alara laughed at first, thinking I was wasting time. But soon, the laughter turned to incredulity. "You're actually communicating with it?" she asked, her voice trembling. "Yes," I said, keeping my hands steady. "It's responding to resonance, not force." Desperation and discovery. Hours turned into what felt like days. Alara became frantic, her usual composure shattered. She tried to force the station's doors open, reroute its energy, even threaten it, actions that only made the station pulse violently in response. Finally, I found the harmonic sequence that synchronized with the Echo Stone. I played it. The station vibrated, and the corridors shifted, revealing a central chamber that seemed to exist outside time itself. In the center floated a crystalline entity, its form both terrifying and beautiful. "You sought knowledge," it said, its voice harmonizing with every cell in my body. "But the path requires balance. Courage alone is insufficient." Alara gasped. For hours, she had relied solely on skill, on speed, on fearlessness. But the station required intuition, patience, and connection. I extended my hands toward the Echo Stone, letting its energy flow through me. The station's pulse slowed, colors stabilizing into a rhythm that made my chest ache. And then it spoke directly to Alara. "You are lost," it said, the harmonic softening. "Desperation clouds your judgment. Trust must precede action." She fell to her knees, the weight of her hubris crushing her. I don't understand," she whispered, voice cracking. For the first time, the legendary Alara Voss was vulnerable before me, a human like any other. Resolution. Using the harmonic sequence, I guided the station to open a pathway back to normal space. Alara watched silently, her usual arrogance replaced by awe and something like humility. When we finally emerged from the wormhole, the Aurora's edge was battered but intact. Stars stretched normally across the viewport, and the ship's AI confirmed we were back in familiar territory. Alara didn't speak at first. She stood in the observation deck, gazing at the stars, silent. Then she turned to me. You actually saved us," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "I laughed at you, and I was wrong. I didn't know what to do without trying to dominate the situation." I shrugged, feeling a mixture of relief and fatigue. Sometimes skill isn't enough. Sometimes patience and understanding matter more. Her laugh returned, but softer this time, without scorn. "I'll never underestimate you again. Hours ago, I could have lost everything, and it would have been my fault." I smiled faintly. We both learned something. She looked at me, her gaze searching, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was in the presence of a legend. I felt like I was standing beside a human, flawed, brilliant, and alive. And in that moment, the legend of Alara Voss changed. Not because she had conquered the rift, but because she had learned to trust another human, and realized that even the greatest among us can falter when alone. Epilogue. Weeks later, the story of the Aurora's Edge's journey spread across the colonies. I received commendations for my work with the Echo Stone, but more importantly, Alara and I shared a quiet camaraderie built on shared survival and mutual respect. She never laughed at me again, at least not in the way that used to sting. Instead, she laughed with me, and hours of desperation turned into a bond that neither of us would ever forget. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the viewport, and I knew that whatever dangers the rift held, we would face them, not as legend and nobody, but as equals, guided by skill, patience, and the strange, powerful resonance of trust.